It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Before we get to anything else, today, just so you know, there's going to be a nationwide emergency test on your cell phones. It is supposed to hit all cell phones. The test alert will be sent out at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. The test will be conducted by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, working in coordination with the Federal Communications Commission. So at 2:20, if you get a message on your phone, it starts beeping, and it says FEMA, and we're doomed, then you've got the test.
May not say we're doomed. It might just say this is a test. If you get one from a bunch of clowns known collectively as Red Eye Radio, and it says we're doomed, that's probably a notification from our app.
Yeah, so, and it'll still surprise me.
Yeah.
You know what bothered me yesterday?
Is it just one thing?
One of the many things that bothered me yesterday.
Okay, there you go.
I had a busy day. I errands, was visiting some people. Mm-hmm. So I got home, and I was following, you just, on your phone, you follow the vote and everything else. But
right.
I got home, and as soon as I got home, I went, oh, wow. Afternoon baseball is on. Now, I have watched 0 games this year.
Yeah.
From any team, 0.
Yeah.
But when it gets to early October and it's 3:15 in the afternoon, man, it brings me back to being a kid in junior high, and the baseball playoffs would be on in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you'd go home and I'd watch it. So I watched like 5 minutes of it, and then it's like, okay, I got to get to the real world.
Yeah.
The bizarro real world yesterday of McCarthy that we covered really in the first couple of segments of the show. I'll tell you one thing though, because of that was that sort of got lost in it was the concern of the financial markets yesterday. Stocks tumbled as Treasury yields hit their highest levels since 2007.
Yeah,
the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 430.97 points. Its worst day since March. The S&P 500 slid 1.37%, lowest level since June. Still up for the year, I think 10%. I think. And NASDAQ Composite dropped 1.87% as growth stocks saw some of the biggest losses because of the rise in rates. With Tuesday's losses, the Dow went into red for the year, up by 0.4%. The broader S&P 500 still up 10% for 2023. The 10-year Treasury, and by the way, and this affects everything. If you've got cash, well, you can park it somewhere and right now beat the rate of inflation.
At the moment,
yeah. I mean, when was the last time you could say that? That just popped into my head now.
Well,
wow.
That's it. And the stock market is, there's it's been up and down, but it really, in terms of massive movement, in recent months we haven't seen that. And so if you can park it in a sure thing and say, okay, that's a pretty good return, then of course then you move out of stocks, and therefore the stock market is down.
The 10-year Treasury yield touched 4.8%, reaching its highest level in 16 years. Well, it reached its highest level since we stopped manipulating the dollar and printing money to buy our own debt.
Right.
The benchmark yield has surged in the past month as the Federal Reserve pledged to keep interest rates at a higher level for longer. The 30-year Treasury yield hit 4.92%, also the highest since 2007. The average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage, close to 8% now. And that's the concern that the markets are now having as interest rates keep going up. And the Fed is expected to raise rates again by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, and it's, there is a question as to whether or not, because there's the breaking down of the comments and assessments of people like Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, when he said the Fed is going to have to be more aggressive, even still, on interest rates. I don't know how aggressive Powell will be. I don't know how aggressive they will be, but I think it's a fair bet to say at least one more quarter of a point between now and January 1st. But it could be more aggressive. And the idea is hitting the brakes on inflation. I don't think they've been serious enough. And you get into the, position that we're in now, where inflation is still a great concern. Over the last couple of months, core inflation is still rising. And you have high interest rates. If you're talking about 8% on a 30-year mortgage, where it wasn't that long ago, it was 3%. That kind of swing, it's not that we haven't been here. It's how you get there and how quickly you get there. And also the other market conditions under which you get there. And those are the problems long term. There's not going to be any fiscal sanity because the GOP doesn't have, regardless of what happened yesterday, it's not going to change the makeup of the GOP in the House. And they don't have the kind of margin you need to really get things done, or the political will even within the party to get things done, to show long-term, to demonstrate to the world that we're serious about our fiscal situation. So, and then you get into monetary policy, and this has been this game, that they've been trying to play for a long, long time. But there isn't a real fix here. There isn't a real equation that's going to solve everything where you can say, look, we can look 6 months down the road and this is where it's going to be. We're very confident this is where it's going to be. So then the question is commercial real estate. Yeah. And I've been talking about this for a while, and the implosion of commercial real estate has been in the making for and really coming to the surface in terms of the conversation, especially in recent months, when you have companies that say, you know what, we're turning the keys over to the bank because owning this commercial real estate, this building, this chunk of real estate here doesn't make any sense when the valuation isn't there in terms of that ratio compared to what we owe on that building. And when companies are willing to do that, and when you have tenants that are moving out in massive, massive numbers, then that's going to be a problem for a while. I also wonder about, and I don't know the number of if there are what the rate of adjustable rate mortgages is, what percentage of adjustable rate mortgages there might be still on the individual level for people's homes. We kind of forget about that. Then you look at delinquencies on auto loans and everything else, and personal debt is rising. It's at the highest level ever.
Yep.
In terms of credit card debt.
And you talk about expendable income that they're spending right now, and now college loans will have to start being paid again.
Yes.
Which is going to also take a hit from people's expendable income because, as we found out, and who was it? Somebody sat down with Biden, remember, and told them what the polls show people are spending the money that they're saving from college loans on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not saving it; they were blowing it.
Right.
And he didn't like to hear that at all. But it's that's what apparently the survey showed. But when you see here, office attendance in big cities is still barely half of what it was in 2019 in the big cities. And, you know, you and I were looking at the Starbucks closing 7 downtown San Francisco stores. Yeah, some of that might be crime in areas, but also could a lot of that be the fact that the traffic isn't there?
It just isn't there because you have this mass exodus now and so many vacancies in those downtown areas, San Francisco especially, which means no humans, fewer humans. And, yeah, the traffic is likely down. I would love to see the breakdown on those 7 stores and the same store sales year over year, what that has been. I would love to see that because that's likely what it is. It I'm sure is also in part, you know, the crime and everything else that's going there.
And then you look at, reading here from MarketWatch, bank stocks might be on pace for yearly losses as sharply higher interest rates take a toll. The industry reserves are at the highest level in 3 decades. Yeah, because people can't afford to borrow money.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Bank shares have come under more selling pressure since the Federal Reserve in September signaled it could keep rates higher for longer than earlier anticipated. The tough talk has dampened this year's rally in stocks and reignited a dramatic sell-off in the roughly $25 trillion Treasury market. Right now, there is nothing standing in the way of higher Treasury yields. Kathy Jones, chief fixed income strategist at Schwab Center for Financial Research, told MarketWatch it's fairly obvious it's not good for banks. The rise in yields has just been relentless. Higher yields on newly issued Treasury bonds erode the value of portfolios that include lower coupon debt issued when rates were lower. Banks also tend to hold large exposure to commercial property loans that could be difficult to refinance if rates stay higher for longer. And you and I'd ask this question because the economy's been, even with all the challenges we see with inflation, okay, people are employed. We talk about the lack of having an available workforce out there and when that really is going to impact the economy. But we've always been worried about the financial centers and the urban centers, you know, the cities in our country where commercial real estate is down so much.
Yeah.
And you know, that half the people still haven't come back to work in so many of the large cities, which has the domino effect for every single business that's in that city.
Yeah.
And we always said that's the great unknown. You know, how do you figure that? How, you know, who takes an analysis and looks at all the cities and then tries to extrapolate out? This shows there will be a reduction in GDP because of this. I haven't seen that yet. Probably somebody's done a workup on it, and it would be interesting to look at, but it's really not public knowledge, or it may be public knowledge, but it's not well-known knowledge.
Yeah, it's not something that's promoted. I've always been fascinated about commercial real estate, and there seemed to have been, there was at one point, you know, these corporations would come in and, like in our area in North Texas, you had a lot of office space, but a lot of companies want to come in and build their own office space. They want to create their own work culture. Toyota moved here to North Texas a few years ago and several years ago, and they built their own campus of buildings. And they were temporarily officed in a building close to that campus as it was being built. But part of it is that you kind of want that, you know, companies want to have that investment. You know, they don't want to be paying rent. They want to have that investment, but also they want to have those amenities. They want to have that available for staffers. And that approach, I'm wondering now, especially after COVID, how much it's backfiring when you can't get a number of them back to the campus.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A slow-moving cold front continues to travel across the country.
Eventually, by the end of the week, that front will arrive across the southern and eastern United States. By that point, it will be weakening, but at present, it's still got some pretty good integrity, and it's got quite a temperature contrast across it.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says the eastern half of the U.S. remains warm and dry through the early part of the week, highlighted by record-setting high temperatures for October.
That warmth continues, but it is shifting eastward, and by the time we get to this weekend, we will have flushed all of that warmth away into the Atlantic, and we'll see much more seasonable temperatures.
Which means the plains and Midwest will experience potential frost and freezes this weekend.
This freeze is not early for the far northern plains and the upper Midwest. Pretty typical to see this type of conditions, but it is going to be a shock to the system after the 80 and 90 degree heat that we've been seeing in recent days.
I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Elon Musk's Tesla suffered its first quarter-on-quarter sales decline in years, prompting concerns about America's appetite for electric vehicles. No blank, Sherlock.
Well, you know, all the things that we talked about in the last segment, the higher interest rates of borrowing the money to pay for a very expensive vehicle, any vehicle. And then also a lot of the honeymoon period with EVs for the tech geeks is over. There are a couple of things with Tesla. There are a lot of liberals who don't want to drive anything related to Elon Musk anymore. But beyond that, too, is you were going to hit your saturation level at some point of that market. The tech geeks who love the technology, who are absolutely 100% into it for the technology. And so then, what is it about? You've got to get out to the common consumer. You got to convert the unconverted, the non-tech geeks, the people who, quite frankly, haven't considered what it would take to own an EV and everything that, you know, you have to do to make sure that, well, you can drive it. And so, you know, but price point is number one.
Price point's everything, but it's even the little things to me. For example, if I've got whenever I go somewhere, going to work, whatever, just filling up. It's like, all right, how long is this going to take me? Mm-hmm. Well, by the time I pull into the gas station and fill up and leave, get the receipt, look at it, and leave, I'm there 3 minutes.
Right.
That's too long for me. Mm-hmm. I want to get in quicker.
Yeah. No, yesterday I had to fill my truck, and I had to fill it. It was like empty, and I had to fill it. I was like, what is taking so long?
I know.
And then, you know, for an EV, upgrading currently your home in order to plug it in at home, that quite possibly is required and is also costly. And so all of these considerations for it. Now you're tapping into the real demand. Where's the real demand for it?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, just quickly going over it. Speaker McCarthy is now former Speaker McCarthy. They're off for a week.
Yeah.
New Speaker Pro Tem came in, McHenry from North Carolina, and said, okay, we're gone for a week. We come back, and a week from today, they're back Tuesday, which would be a week from yesterday. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to have a vote, basically know who they're going to want, who the different choices are, and vote by next Wednesday.
Yeah.
They need to get this done fast.
They really do.
If they get it done fast, and it's somebody like Scalise, nobody will remember this a month from now.
Right. Well, it was just like, and you said the same thing when they were going through the all of it in January.
Yeah.
Once this is done, nobody will really recall, this. The average person's not going to think about this. And if they can get back in a week and get the vote done, and I agree with you, if it's somebody like Steve Scalise, who is well respected, then they can get back to work. I won't say no harm, no foul. I'll just say they can get back to work. And that's what they need to do more than anything right now. A lot of the outrage and everything else on social media yesterday that was playing out, and Newt Gingrich, blah, 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 blah. Look, we'll see what happens with the Ethics Committee and Matt Gaetz. I don't know. Don't make this about revenge. If he's done something wrong, demonstrate that and then move accordingly. But beyond that, what's done is done, and you're not going to change it. So what you can do as a party, and I think Scalise can probably do this in terms of, gathering the support needed, is move on those agenda items. Let's get back to work on a number of fronts that are going to be imperative over the next 13 months.
Here's my worry. Scalise gets in, okay? Now that all the Democrats know that Gaetz will probably jump on it quicker, their belief is, all right, if Scalise doesn't do exactly what he wants,
right?
Because by the time Scalise gets in, hypothetically, if it is Scalise, this is all hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Because I know I'm sure I'm probably getting emails right now. Well, what about Trump? You don't have to be. Trump's not going to be the next Speaker of the House.
He is not.
Yes. So I know there was a lot of excitement on social media, but apparently Republicans live in their delusional world too. Uh-huh. Some Republicans. Mm-hmm. That's not happening.
Not going to happen.
So if it is Scalise, let's say Scalise is it, they've got 30 days, to get another deal done. Mm-hmm. The Democrats know they can completely destroy whoever comes in as a speaker simply by saying, we're not going to negotiate. We want more than we got before. Mm-hmm. And they know that if the Republicans close down the government because of the fear that if they agree with Democrats on anything, that Gaetz will start up, they're probably we're really hoping they close the government. This is the political side of it, hoping that the Republicans will close the government, partially close the government, get blamed for it, and they're like, we can play with these because of Gaetz. We can play with the Republicans in Congress for the next 13 months and cause chaos consistently because that's their only goal is to create chaos so the Republicans cannot stay on message about how insane the Democrats are and how the American public views by landslide majority on the vast majority of issues that face our country today, how the Democrats are nuts.
Yeah.
On these issues.
Yeah.
And that's the bad part of what happened. That's the bad part of what happened yesterday, unless Gaetz realizes if he does this every month, he loses the effectiveness of it.
Well, that's it. If, I mentioned earlier, is this going to be the new censure or the new,
Impeachment.
Is this going to be your move? And is it going to be, the same thing over and over again? Because that's it. If it is Steve Scalise or whoever it is, the next speaker will do things that Matt Gaetz doesn't approve of. So then what? And if this is going to be the tactic, you're absolutely right because of that slim margin. Democrats know they can make enough noise and keep the GOP on the ropes.
And the other thing is we're in new territory here because this isn't the Trump loyalist against everybody else. It's not the case here.
Right.
In fact, Gaetz got burned when he was talking about the fact that he talked to the president. The president supports, or the former president supports what he's doing. And then Trump came out later on the day and Truth Social said, doesn't think it's a good idea.
Actually, he had already, when he was being questioned, when Matt Gaetz was being questioned about it, he had already posted it. The reporter knew that and set him up.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, the reporter set him up and said,
okay.
"Have you talked to the former president, President Trump, about this?" Well, yes, I have, and we've talked in recent days. Obviously, we haven't talked since the vote, and he supports me on this. And well, actually, he just put on Truth Social that he doesn't think this is a good idea, and he got burned. Matt Gaetz got burned, and this is the problem: is that there are no true allies. There is no real loyalty. Because as soon as someone believes they're going to get burned, they're gone. And that's how the game is played. Matt Gaetz can, I think he's okay with being kind of and I said lone wolf yesterday, but in the sense that he's the face of all this. I think he's okay with that because he's in a safe district, at least for now. By the way, I did get an email the other day before the vote that said, I live in Navarre and I don't want him to be my representative anymore. Just one person. It's just anecdotal. But it got me to wondering to what extent does that exist. I'm guessing in that district he's still very safe. But
it's Navarre.
Yeah. But the problem is that for him is, number one, that big question, what does the ethics committee actually have? But then forget what Eric and Gary think the ethics committee should do. Is it going to be about revenge at this point? And men, you really mess things up for the party. And we've got enough, what we believe we've got enough things. It's not how we think, you and I think, but they may be thinking, oh, you know what? We've got enough to move on it here. To cut him out and separate him from the herd.
Well, there has to be punishment for. I mean, Newt Gingrich was on, and again, we're relating what they're saying. All right,
Yeah,
Newt
right.
Gingrich came out and said these people are traitors to the Republican Party,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got blasted as a rhino and establishment.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, wow, how things change on social media.
Right.
But the thing that changes this all is that this isn't. A Trump group that's doing what Trump wants.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not even a group of conservatives from the House Freedom Caucus who all broke off. And part of the problem for Gaetz is the one who shot down the House Freedom Caucus plan for the 45 days, a continuing resolution that they wanted that would have cut a little bit, done border security, and as the thought process is from the people that the majority of a significant portion of Republicans that wanted that, including the House Freedom Caucus, is that gets McCarthy better bargaining position in November.
Mm.
We did get one call today saying, well, we need to have a budget, and we can't have these continuing, resolutions. Mm. You may believe that. The people that understand what's going on might believe that and might want a budget. Because I like a budget which is more long-term. But really, and I said this when McCarthy became Speaker and when the Republicans won, this is about marketing the Republican Party as the party to elect in 2024. The politics of it, of the messaging of Republicans to me, and what I see needs to happen in order to get the Senate and the presidency back, in order to actually do the things you need to do, is to market and communicate effectively over this time period, and this chaos doesn't help.
Right.
And that's just as important. And if you're going to argue the continuing resolution versus the budget, the vast majority of Americans have no idea why there's the chaos over something like that. And even conservatives will say, but if you cut and you got what you wanted in that 45 days and you put yourself in a stronger position, why are you just rejecting it? In a way this is what they may be thinking, on semantics.
Yeah, right.
Because if we're spending less money for the next 45 days and it gets us another continuing resolution for 45 days that spends less, then gets us into the fact of the public being even more furious because it's a time game here because of inflation. Also, Republicans are thinking that we have the more we can continue, even with the CR, making little cuts and getting things that we want, gives us a stronger bargaining position down the road.
Right.
Now, that's what you would hope for. All of it is what you're hoping for. And as I said, look, I'll be blunt. We've been disappointed with the Republicans for such a long time where, yeah, you can make the case. And I told the gentleman who disagreed with us a little bit earlier, said, look, you may have a case. McCarthy could have stayed and they could have got that passed.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, everything's working out, then everything's great. And then they get a budget for a year, which cuts a little bit and does whatever. Then they get everything in 2024 that they want, and they blow it. Remember, when Trump won and had the House and the Senate, they did some, but they didn't go nearly as far as I wanted them to go.
Right. Yep. And
that's the reality of politics, and that's the reality of when you have to cut.
That's it. And nothing is going to change. I don't care who the speaker is between now and January 2025 at least. Well, nothing is going to change because the makeup of the GOP in the House is not any different.
Well, let's look at the two that were mentioned, Scalise and Trump. It's not going to be Trump, and I'm doing this just for Scalise and Trump. Both are against what Gates did.
Yeah.
So you're starting out with people that were against what you did.
Right.
Because
Gates has said he would support Steve Scalise.
Right.
He's going to support a guy who didn't go along with him yesterday. What does that tell you?
They wanted McCarthy to stay.
Right. This is about personality conflict. That's what this was.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We didn't get a chance to talk about day 2 of the Trump trial. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it because so much was focused on the other stuff. But I didn't see any interesting stuff that really came out that was groundbreaking. Did you? From the Trump trial?
I did not. A gag order.
I
thought that meant that we can't talk about it, but apparently that's not the case. But. Man, that's almost like one of those TikTok challenges to give Donald Trump a gag order. Ready, go.
I mean, the gag order was specifically you can't talk about anybody on the staff.
I know, but when you say you can't do that to Donald Trump, then all he's going to do is talk about what he can't do. But in this case, he can't talk about it. That's what he can't do.
Right. He'll talk about how he can't talk about what he can't talk about. He did pull the tweet, though. As soon as that happened, when they broke, he pulled the tweet. So
I mean, look, I'm really more interested in.
I mean, he. I'm having fun here. He really defamed the staff member.
Yeah. Right.
He said she dated Schumer.
Yeah. That's false.
I did not.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's what Fetterman has on Schumer. I don't know. But the entire case, I'm really curious to see how that goes on appeals and where this goes to. I mean, we touched on it yesterday, but the statute of limitations and everything else, and the judge kind of making reference to things that happened. Did they happen since 2014? Because if so, that's great. If not, this is a waste of time. It's a very interesting case, no doubt.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood.